Here we go. Let's do this thing. Hey there, my name is Jasmine Sky, and I am here today with another Authortube tag video. This one was created by Bookish Pen Babe, so I'm going to link the original video down below for you to check out. And as always, I have other links down below of things that you can do to support various peoples across the world who really need your support right now. So please, as always, check out those links. So today I'm going to be doing the My Writing Process tag, which I think is interesting. Hopefully you will find it interesting. You might not. It might just be interesting for me. Who knows? We're gonna do it anyway. So this tag has 20 questions, which is a lot, so I'm gonna try to fly through them. I did not write out my answers for these questions because I was lazy this week. So we are just gonna go. Ooh, I'm gonna get a snake. Today I am joined by Loki, who is my rhino rat snake, because it's almost his birthday and I decided that he deserved to be in a video. So, you know, say hi to Loki. He's very friendly, I promise. You saying hi to everyone? That's so cute of you, Loki. He is turning 3 on July 31st. So when is this video going up? This video is gonna be going up on the 29th, presuming everything goes correctly. So it's almost your birthday. How exciting. So, number 1, what genres do you write? I write primarily fantasy. I occasionally write science fiction or science fantasy, but fantasy is my main genre. Also romance, fantasy romance, romantic fantasy, romantic science fiction. Like all of my stories have a strong romance plot. So yeah. Number 2, what setting gets you the most productive? I'm assuming this means what physical setting I would be writing in instead of what settings I am most productive writing about. So I am often at my most productive writing setting parts. I often, when I am having a little bit of writer's block in my stories, I will just default to describing where my characters are because for whatever reason, that's helpful for me to unstuck myself. But when it comes to my physical location and where I'm most productive, it really depends, actually. I will find that when I'm having writer's block and it's not going away, what I need to do is change settings. So I'll take my laptop and write a little bit on the couch. But then also I find that writing at my desk is super productive. I do not find that writing in like coffee shops and things is very productive for me. I do like writing in quieter spaces like the library, but I haven't been writing in any of those spaces since the quarantine, so mostly I've been stuck at home, and that means that I have been writing either on the couch or at my desk. And I'm being pretty productive actually, so I think it's working out. Number 3, if you have multiple story ideas, how do you go about picking which one to start on first? I often have multiple story ideas, and by often I mean all the time. I never don't have multiple story ideas that I could work on. And sometimes I'm a little bit flippant when it comes to the planning stages. Like last year for Nano, I thought I was gonna write a completely different story. And then on like October 30th, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write Shackles of Bone instead, which is the novel I'm currently querying. So yeah, I just kind of go with where the mood strikes. It's the same way I read. I don't plan out my reading very well. I really just am kind of like, oh, hey, I'm in the mood to read that. And then I start working on it. I try very hard not to flip-flop on ideas when I'm in the middle of drafting. So once I have committed to an idea, I will do it. But in the sort of in-betweens where I'm trying to choose the next idea, I will literally flip-flop until the day I sit down to start drafting, and then it's full steam ahead. But I am constantly planning and outlining and world building for multiple ideas at any given time. Like there's always ideas being generated. Number 4, do you outline? Yes, always. Number 5, do you start your first draft with pen and paper, typewriter, or computer? That's kind of funny to me. I start with a computer. Actually, sometimes I start with my phone because the early sort of planning stages often happen when I'm out and about. At least they did pre-quarantine. Even sometimes when I'm in my house and I'm not immediately at my computer, I will put my initial sort of thoughts and notes on my phone, or when I'm out walking the dog, things like that. But when it comes to actually drafting, so early sort of outlining and notes and planning things will happen on a combination of on my phone and also on pen and paper, especially when it comes to like drawing maps and things like that. I like drawing maps of cities and stuff, especially when they're very important for me to like be spatially aware of what's going on. And then also sometimes it's just nice to be like doing that initial planning with pen and paper. But once I get to a more defined part of the outlining process and the planning process, I transfer it all over to my computer and make very organized notes because I am very much someone who likes to be organized. And then when it actually comes to drafting, I draft exclusively on my computer. I do not handwrite my stories. I try very hard not to write my stories on my phone, though if I get a bit of dialogue or something when I'm in the middle of drafting and I'm like out walking the dog, then I will do it on my phone so I don't forget. But for the most part, all my drafting is on my computer. 6, what do you do to get through writer's block? I have a couple different sort of things that I do. Sometimes I will change physical location, as I talked about, so I will, switch from my laptop to my desktop and try to change where I'm writing in the house. Sometimes I will fall back on writing setting, and that will push me through a scene. But my most common tip to pushing through writer's block is actually just to jump to the next scene. I don't like to jump around in the novel very much. I'm very much someone who likes to write chronologically, but in a given chapter, I will jump around between the scenes of the chapter, and that will help me get that chapter out. Number 7 is, do you format your project from the beginning or worry about it later? Definitely format it from the beginning. I will change things up if I figure out that the format that I used is not working. So for instance, in between a first and second draft, I might switch up how long my chapters are going to be or where certain scenes might be in certain chapters, try to make stronger chapter endings and things like that. But for the most part, whatever I've decided my format is going to be from the very beginning is how it's going to be. So if I've broken it up into parts, or if I've, figured out the general number of chapters I'll have, that really doesn't change that much in between drafts. I have often a clear vision for that kind of thing from the get-go. Number 8, do you edit as you go or only when you finish the first draft? For me, it's a bit of a combination. I don't do major revision while I am drafting. If I have an idea for how I want to change something pretty major, then I will just write a note. I'll often have in my draft, I'll have, all my chapters on my scenes, and then I'll have a tab that's like revisions for draft 2, and I'll write any notes I have there to go back to when I do draft 2. But I will often do minor polishing edits, and that's just because when I'm actively drafting, when I've stepped away for a day or whatever and I come back, or also as part of me trying to like initially get through that, I wouldn't really call it writer's block, but like when you first sit down at your computer and you don't have a clear idea about what you're gonna write, you need to kind of get yourself back into the story, whatever that feeling is called, I will go back and reread the last chapter or the last scene of what I had written previously. And in the process of rereading my own work, I always inevitably do some minor tweaking, catching typos for sure, but also just minor tweaking when it comes to like the sentence level, trying to make the sentences sound better, or maybe I rearrange a paragraph a little bit for better flow, or add another couple lines of dialogue, or cut a couple lines of dialogue, like things like that I do throughout the process all the time. Every single time I reread anything I've written, that happens. So yes and no. Number 9, after you've finished your draft/manuscript, how long do you take a break before you go back to revise again? I will try to give myself at minimum a month, but I try for even longer than a month. I try for 6 weeks, and sometimes I'll even take 2 to 3 months off because that distance really, really helps. It depends on, you know, my deadlines and what I have going on. Of course, when I was in my MFA program, I had some pretty strict deadlines, so I couldn't take as long between drafts of what I was doing. And then also I just have these self-imposed deadlines of wanting to get an agent, so I don't try to give myself a lot of time in between drafts so that I can really, you know, make sure I'm continuing on this path to publication. But at minimum, a month to 6 weeks is, I think, necessary. I don't think you can go less than that easily and really have the kind of scope you need to make those big revisions. Number 10, is there something you prefer to do to get through your writing, such as playing music, watching TV, having a favorite drink or food? I play music. I have playlists for my stories always. So every time I sit down to write that book, I will play the playlist for that book, and that helps, you know, train my brain to say, like, when I hear those songs, oh, it's time to be working in that world, which is kind of funny because back when I used to commute to work before working from home, anytime one of the songs that I've put on the playlist would come on the radio, it would immediately make my brain jump to my book. And then, you know, it's great because it shows that it works, but also wasn't great because I would start having ideas and think of things that I could do, and I wouldn't be able to work on it because I would be in the car. So, you know, it's what it is. But yes, I love playlists, love listening to music. I also have tried to do the candle trick where you light a type of candle every time you work on something. And so it's the similar sort of tricking your brain into associating that smell with that book. And that works okay for me, but sometimes candles will give me like a scent headache and I can't keep them on very long. So I only use candles rarely. Music is my main thing. 11, do you schedule your writing sessions? Yes, because I schedule my life. So, you know, in any given day, I wake up in the morning and I have an idea about what I need to do that day, especially now that I'm working from home. But like even when I was at work, I would, you know, have my schedule for the day and the stuff that I needed to get done. And I would kind of plan out when I would have time for various things in the day. And that's how I function. So yes, I schedule my writing sessions in that sense. I even schedule them on the longer sense of saying like, okay, I'm gonna start first drafting this month and hopefully be able to do my second draft this month and things like that. I'm just a very organized person. I cannot function without a schedule. Number 12, do you have word counts or chapter goals for your writing sessions? Not typically. I mean, sometimes, yes, I will, you know, think like, okay, I have an hour, I should be able to finish this chapter. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes if I'm having writer's block and I have to, you know, switch between a bunch of different scenes, it doesn't work out as well as I'd like. But for the most part, I'm pretty good about saying like, okay, this time that I have to sit down to write, I'm going to, you know, be able to write this scene or finish this chapter, and I'm pretty good at meeting my self-imposed deadlines in that way. So, number 13, are there any quirky things you do to make your projects more fun? I don't really know how to answer that question. Like, I don't really think creating a music playlist for my books is quirky. I think a lot of people do that. I do not, when I first got my snakes, I had this like vision of sitting at my computer and like having my snakes around my neck, or one of my snakes around my neck, and writing with that. That was kind of, you know, a vision of my ideal author life, I guess. But in reality, like Loki's being pretty calm right now. But even still, he's not letting go of my hand. Like he really wants to hold on to these fingers even though he's going around my neck. So sometimes he's perfect and he just hangs out around my neck, and that's great, and I'd be able to write if I wanted to because he would just be there. And I have in fact, you know, written a little bit with Loki hanging around my neck because he likes to do that. But it's not a frequent thing, and if I have my snakes out, inevitably I'm not going to be as productive because I'm going to have to make sure that they're not, you know, going into small nooks and crannies in places I can't get to them. So yeah, I don't write with my snakes much. So that's a negative answer, I guess. I can't think of anything else quirky that I would do. So that's my only answer, I guess. 14, do you work on multiple projects at the same time? I already answered this. No, I try not to. When I'm actively drafting, I am focusing on that one thing. I think that's really good to really immerse yourself into a story. You want to live, breathe, drink everything. You want that story to be your entire life while you're working on it. Loki, what are you doing? Speaking of not being able to write with snakes, he was just trying to go down in my shirt and behind my collar. So, you know, it's not so productive when you've got a little slithery friend hanging out with you while you're trying to write. It doesn't work so well. It works okay for videos because I think it's kind of entertaining, as long as none of you are afraid of snakes. So sorry in advance if you are. Kind of too late for that, I guess. Anyway, what was I answering? Working on multiple projects. I try not to. 15, how often do you research while writing? All the time. Anytime I'm in the middle of writing something, let's say I'm working on a medieval fantasy in a specific like time period, and I'm like, you know, writing, and I am having the characters go between rooms in a castle, and I'm like, wait, hold on, how are the castles of this time period architecturally designed? Because I need to know so that I can visualize it if I don't already know the answer to that in my pre-world building. Then I will step away from the scene, like immediately look it up, and then go back and finish my thought. I occasionally, if I have something I need to research that is not something I'm actually interested in, but something I need for the scene, then I will put a note like, look this up, right? And then I'll do that in my next draft. But most of the time I will step away immediately in the process of writing and do my research and come back to it. So I'm a little chaotic when it comes to that. 16, how do you organize your projects? I use Dabble, which is like Scrivener, but it's specifically made for novelists. Scrivener was originally started for screenwriters. Scrivener now has updated itself because so many novelists use it. It now functions really well for novelists as well, but I started using Dabble last year, and it's actually been, I feel like more than a year since I started using Dabble. I can't remember now, but I really love Dabble. I really love its interface. I really love all of the organizational tabs it has. So it, you know, has a sidebar where you can do all of your scenes and reorganize your scenes and put them into chapters and put them into a manuscript, and then you can have your plot trees, and you can have your characters and your world building notes, and it's all in one document. And I really, really love that functionality of Dabble or Scrivener. If you use Scrivener, I'm never gonna write with Word again. It does not work for me now that I've, you know, figured out these other great programs. Number 17, do you reward or punish yourself for doing or missing out on your writing goals? No and yes. I definitely feel guilty if I haven't gotten done what I wanted to get done, which is not great because, you know, it's not a great feeling when you make yourself really sad and feel like you are worthless because you didn't do what you wanted to do. So I actually wish that I was better about not being so hard on myself when I don't do things. But in terms of rewards, yes, I guess, like if I finish a draft, maybe I'll go out to dinner, but for the most part, the reward just comes from the feeling of accomplishment from finishing something. So I don't really do that. 18, do you use any works that are similar to or comparable to your project for inspiration or for comparison? Definitely. When I am initially coming up with an idea, it's usually because I've read or watched something that has inspired me, or multiple things have come together that have inspired me. And then I will write the first draft, and then I will do what is called refilling your well in between the first and second draft, where I will read and watch a whole bunch of things in a similar genre to what it is that I just wrote to help refill my well so that I can successfully think of ways to revise it for the second draft. So yes, all the time. I think it's so important to read and watch and consume media in the genre and with the style that you are actively working on, so that you can know what's already out there, know what the conventions of the genre are, and to help inspire you. And it actually, some people get really worried, I think, that like, oh, I'll accidentally copy someone else. I actually think it's the other way around. When you know what already exists, you are less likely to unintentionally copy someone else's work, because a lot of media is just out there in the world and you may have seen a blip of it somewhere and not realized it, and then it becomes part of your writing. And then when you go and you read their novel, you're like, that scene is almost identical to what I wrote and I didn't even realize it. So being able to read widely in your genre and know what already exists is so important for many reasons, and I definitely try to do that. 19, how early do you start looking for editors? This question's a little weird. I think I don't, looking for editors, like, on one hand, I guess I could interpret that as how early would I start trying to get a book published, so going literary agent to then editor, and it has been at about the draft 3 mark so far, but like I said in my last video, I'm gonna try with my next novel to maybe be ready to start sending it out to literary agents after draft 2, but we'll have to see. Draft 2 might not be ready and I might need to wait for a 3rd draft, who knows. But yeah, I try to get like a really solid story and at least have done one really big revision before I do the publication journey part of it. When it comes to looking for betas or for, more friend editor level, I guess, that really depends on the draft. Sometimes if I find in the past that my first draft was a really good quality first draft, then I'll send it out to people to solicit opinions for revision for the 2nd draft. Other times I kind of have a good idea of what I need to do for the 2nd draft myself, and so I'll write the 2nd draft and then I'll send it out to critique partners for revision for the 3rd draft. So depends on the book. Somewhere between the 2nd and 3rd draft is when I'll solicit early opinions of what I'm working on. And number 20, if you finished a first draft or a manuscript, tell us how you felt afterwards. Typically when I finish a first draft, I actually don't feel as accomplished as maybe some people do, because my first drafts, I think everyone's first drafts are pretty messy, and I'm so aware of the amount of work I still have to do after a first draft that like I feel happy to have finished it, but I'm so focused on like what's next that I don't feel as accomplished. But when I finish the draft, like the 3rd draft that I think then makes it ready to query, that's when I feel my most accomplished and when I am really excited and happy, and hoping for the future and things like that. Definitely you should always feel a sense of accomplishment, and I should be better about applauding myself for those early drafts. But as it stands right now, I'm always more excited when I finish the later draft, because I know that that's closer to publication. So that's, yeah, I'm a little type A personality when it comes to this. Come here, Loki. Come say hi. So yeah, that's that. Those were the 20 questions of the writing process Authortube tag. Thank you for watching. Hope that was maybe a little bit interesting, and at the very least, maybe it was interesting to watch Loki mess around this whole video. And yeah, I'm gonna go put him back in his enclosure so that he can go explore all of his branches and things. He's very hungry. I think he's getting fed tomorrow. He only gets fed once a week, so yeah. Happy early birthday to you, Loki. Happy 3rd birthday. Come here, try not to choke me, please. Oh, I guess I die now. Anyway, if you liked that video, please leave a like and, wish Loki happy birthday in the comments, and subscribe if you want to see more Authortube content from me. And thank you so very much for watching.